We're all about glass. We're going to talk about glass for about an hour. And a lot of it may sound mundane because we all know about glass, but there are some things that we haven't thought about in a while. And this presentation is going to refresh your memory about some things, especially when it pertains to home inspecting. So what is glass and how does it affect home inspecting? Well, as home inspectors, we run into glass pretty often, not literally, of course, but sometimes. And it affects windows and doors as well as impacts sound, security, and a home's appearance. Glass is found inside most rooms in a house, different shapes, sizes, function. And for the most part, excuse me, inspectors ignore it unless it's scratched, cracked, or broken. There's a lot more to it than that, however. I'm going to give you a detailed understanding of how glass is made. I'll show you certain manufacturing processes that are performed and how it affects how glass behaves. I'm going to point out different fundamentals of glass, as well as glass terminology. How to read the label or the bug that's on some types of glass that's required. So the history of glass, it's old stuff. How glass is made, it's a process. How glass is cut, carefully. Tempered glass process, what's the big deal? Laminated glass process, very cool stuff. Insulated glass process, energy efficiency. Touch sensitive glass, way cooler. And of that last one, some folks think it's alien technology that discovered that and not actually people. You be the judge. So the first section is going to be the history of glass. Obsidian glass was originally used as a tool from about 75,000 BC. Obsidian glass is natural volcanic stone formed as volcanic glass material when lava comes in contact with water. The combination of obsidian, lava, and water creates an opaque crystalline glass structure. 15,000 BC, first glass produced in Egypt. This was not clear glass, but probably colored or opaque glass. 1500 AD, Angelo Brevier invented cristallo, or clear colorless glass. 1608, glass was made in America by Jamestown settlers. Jamestown settlers is the Old English for Jamestown in Virginia, which is next door to a lot of you guys who are here tonight. 1843, Henry Bessemer introduced an early form of float glass, and we'll talk more about float in a minute. 1950 to 1960, glass science became a major research discipline. A major glass research center was established by Ford Motor Company because of the glass they use in the windshield and side windows. 1959, float glass, as it is used today, was invented in the United Kingdom by Sir Alistair Pilkington. Float glass is the most widely used form of glass today and is produced by a process of floating molten glass on a bed of molten metal. Usually that metal is tin. Scientific studies show that it is amorphous. In other words, it has no definite form. When manufactured as a window pane, for example, it will be solid for a time, but slowly take on the characteristics of a liquid and droop into the window frame. The molecules in glass are moving around, they're not solid. I know it's hard to imagine, but that's the characteristics of glass. Over 100 or more years, the pane will be thicker at the bottom than it is at the top because it's being acted on by gravity. Physical properties, it's hard, brittle, non-conductive, dense, refractive. Main component is silicon dioxide, which is also called sand or silica. Different types are made by adding sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminum, or other minerals and compounds to shape the characteristics of whatever the glass is being used for. Each force on a pane of glass causes a deformation that may leave a visible mark on or fracture of the glass. These markings can be used to determine the following: direction of the force, amount of force applied, and a sequence of impacts. We're going to talk in more detail on this when we talk about bulletproof glass. which is a misnomer, by the way. Glass acts as an elastic surface and bends away when initial force is applied. When the force increases beyond the glass's tensile strength, it cracks or breaks. Treating it can modify that behavior, however. Thermal stress cracks. Thermal stress cracks are long, thin cracks that often appear in large windows. These cracks can appear suddenly and often confuse people because there's no obvious cause. Windows may show multiple cracks running away from a central spot if there has been an impact, but a stress crack is simply a line with no clear source. That's an example of a thermal stress crack right there. For no apparent reason, it just cracks. It can happen within days of the glass being installed, or it can happen many years later. I was called to a house about 6 months ago from prior clients I did the inspection for. The house was built in the late 70s, and all of a sudden in their breakfast nook where they had a bay window, the center pane of glass when they woke up that morning was completely cracked, and they couldn't figure out why. Thermal characteristic caused that. It happened many years later, but it happened, and that's what caused it, is the temperature differentials. How glass is made. Annealing is a process of slowly cooling hot glass objects after they have been formed to relieve residual internal stresses introduced during the manufacturing process. Annealing strengthens the glass 4 to 8 times more than what it would be as plate glass. Inadequately annealed glass is likely to crack or shatter when subjected to relatively small temperature changes or to mechanical shock or stress. In other words, impact. Glass is made from raw materials such as sand, soda ash, limestone, that are melted together at very high temperatures to form a new material, glass. As a result, glass can be poured, blown, pressed, and molded into a variety of different shapes and sheets. When glass breaks, the cracks move at 3,000 miles per hour. Glass windows were invented in the 1600s. Glass can take 1 million years to completely decompose. Fortunately, it's 100% recyclable, so we don't have to throw it away. The color of glass bottles have a purpose. The color is chosen to project the bottle's contents. Brown beer bottles, for example, are designed to prevent ultraviolet light from spoiling the beer. How glass is cut. Once tempered or laminated glass is processed, it's difficult to cut it to any other specifications. There is high breakage if that is the result, however, or it's tried. It can be done, but will lose its tempering or lamination properties. Annealing or plate glass is usually where cutting takes place. Machines can cut glass up to 600 feet per minute. This is a processed automated glass cutting factory right here. XYZ stands for the different directions. There are different parameters of the glass, left to right, up and down, or thickness. That's what the XYZ relies on. That's what they call the machine. It can also be cut by hand. Scoring it is the typical method of cutting glass when you do it by hand. Glass cutter does not cut all the way through the glass. It creates a score line. Pieces of glass then can be snapped off or broken out along the score line. Creates a weak point in the glass. Usually used with a diamond cutter. Trim and waste pieces of glass are tossed or recycled into a dumpster, not thrown. Glass is never tossed more than 4 feet for safety reasons. This is an OSHA requirement, by the way. One manufacturer can average 236 tons of recycled glass per week. So it's big business. This is panes of glass that are cut to order, ready to be tempered or laminated, whatever the customer requires. Dealing with the edge of the glass. When glass is cut, it creates a very sharp edge. a very sharp square edge. The seaming process sands and prepares glass for heating. It smooths the edges for safety. They have specific kinds of diamond belts, sanding belts that do that. Seaming also helps prevent the glass from breaking in the tempering oven. Result of seaming, you can see where the glass is green here. That's the natural color of glass, unless they're able to lower the chemicals, the minerals in it to make it clear. Some of these finished edges are designed for exposed use and not for windows or doors. Tabletops, for example, coffee table tops, dining room tabletops, they actually make staircases, the stair treads out of glass that are typically going to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches thick and will support whatever load is being used on those staircases, on those treads. And you see that a lot in upscale homes where they're using glass stair treads instead of other materials. Very pretty to look at. Tempered glass process. Typically used for doors and partitions. The former is called tempered or toughened glass and is used in shower doors, partitions, sliding glass doors, windows where there is people traffic, refrigerator trays, computer monitors, skylights, oven doors, storm doors, architectural glass doors, tables, bullet-resistant glass, and smartphone screen protectors. It is known to be 4 to 8 times stronger than regular glass and can withstand temperatures up to 560 degrees. Apart from its strength, tempered glass is also known for its characteristic way of breaks. Excuse me a second. Okay, I'm back. Unlike regular glass, which shatters upon into sharp shards that can potentially cause injuries, tempered glass breaks into smaller pieces that are interlocked with neighboring pieces and therefore don't fail easily. This is an example of panes of glass that have been tempered and shattered. Other terms for tempered glass are heat treated or safety glass. Tempered glass terms: heat strengthened glass, 2 times stronger than annealed glass, breaks into 8 to 10 inch pieces when fractured, is commonly used in laminated products, not on its own. Fully tempered glass, 4 to 8 times stronger than annealed glass, breaks into 1/4 inch size pieces when fractured, is used as is or in laminated or insulated glass. Amazing stuff. Tempered glass has 10,000 pounds per square inch compression strength. During just one eye blink, tempered glass could break 100 times. Tempered glass will crack at 14 times the speed of sound. When a piece of tempered glass breaks, it will continue to expand the cracks for up to 3 days. Reasons shower or window doors explode, panes explode due to cracks, uneven blemished surfaces, incorrect installation, temperature change, poor quality manufacturing. In all of these cases, the failure can happen in days or many years later, as the example I showed you with the window pane and the breakfast nook. And this is all part of the manufacturing process to eliminate those things happening, and why when the manufacturer makes the glass, they have to look at it very closely to make sure it doesn't have any of these unseen stresses that could develop later on. Laminated glass process. Laminated glass is made up of 2 pieces of glass with a vinyl inner layer usually. The vinyl inner layer is what holds the inner and outer glass panes together, causing it not to shatter. Who invented laminated glass? A Frenchman by the name of Edouard Benedictus. One fateful day in 1903, when working in his lab, Benedictus accidentally knocked a glass flask off its desk. Rather than the glass shattering, spreading tiny pieces of glass all over the floor, instead it simply broke while more or less keeping its form. Pyrex is a particular type of glass. Also, Pyrex is a brand name, by the way. The generic term for this would be borosilicate glass, or boron oxide, really, is added to resist breaking when heated or cooled. In other words, it's designed to expand and contract via temperature, so it can be used in household things like measuring cups, dishes, kitchen that you might find in the kitchen, stuff like that. You can put Pyrex in an oven, you can put it in the freezer, and typically it does not react to those different environments. Getting back to Benedictus, upon further investigation, Benedictus found that the glass had one time contained plastic cellulose nitrate, which had dried on the inside of the flask and created a type of adhesive film coating the inside. That kept the glass from shattering in the normal sense of the breakage. It took him reading about several automobile accidents where people were seriously injured due to their windshield shattering, sending shards of glass flying everywhere. Whatever the case may be, eventually Benedictus was inspired by this experience with his flask to create a type of shatterproof glass. And that's when Ford Motor Company back in the early 19th century got involved in starting to look at this science to determine whether they could make windshields and rear glass windows in cars less capable of injuring and killing people if an accident occurred. Note that toughened glass, in other words, the glass used in impacted security windows, is different from the glass used in conventional windows. The type of glass used in the latter is called laminated glass, which is made by sandwiching a laminate between two or more layers of glass and bonding them using high pressure and heat. The laminate used today is usually polyvinyl butyrol, or PVB plastic. How is laminated glass different from other types of glass? In addition to being very strong, there's also offers a unique advantage. Upon breaking, the broken pieces of glass don't usually fall out. In fact, they stick to the laminate and tend to stay in the frame. This is why applying significant force on a window assembly can make the whole thing pop out of the opening as a single piece. If you ever watched a car chase movie where they had windshield damage and they're kicking the windshield out in order to get it out of the way, they're not putting their foot through the glass or knocking the whole windshield out of the way, because it tends to want to hold itself together. Various thicknesses, various uses. Laminated glass can be used for various things. Different thicknesses is when you get into what you're trying to accomplish, whether you want to have impact resistance, you want to protect yourself from hurricane damage, which glass like that is probably geared for 150-mile-an-hour winds or more. WindGuard is a brand name of hurricane type glass that's used very commonly in my market area to facilitate getting insurance reduction if it's used to help protect the interior of a building or a house. Glass by itself is not naturally clear, as I mentioned earlier. During manufacturing, it's greenish in color due to the iron oxide in it. In order for glass to be clear, the iron oxide has to be reduced. Frosted glass is made by acid etching the glass. It's done using hydrofluoric acid. To make frosted glass transparent, you just need to stick transparent Scotch tape on it. The adhesive of the tape smooths out the irregularities. As a result, the light is not scattered, but passes through the glass as well as through ordinary glass. Required testing label. This type of window label is mandatorily found on tempered and laminated glass. It has to be there by law. And it explains quite a few things on what's going on with the glass. Now, once this label goes on, that glass panel, whatever size or use it's being used for, cannot be altered. It cannot be changed, because that will change its characteristics. Once the label is put on, called the bug, by the way, then that has to be used for whatever it was designed for originally. And here we have on the bug a number of things, bits of information, which as home inspectors we can find by locating where it is. PGT is the manufacturer of it, of course, and it says the warranty void if label is removed. This is going to be found in the header, oftentimes the header of a window or door. And this, in this case, is going to be sliding glass doors. We have a notice of approval with the expiration date on it. That means whatever entity approved this has the manufacturing specifics located where it can be located and found to go along with it. It says Miami-Dade County Product Approval Code. Miami-Dade has specific requirements that are very stringent. As a matter of fact, they're the most stringent in the country. So when you see something that says a Miami-Dade County Product Approval Code on it, that means it's good anywhere in the country. So if you're in Arizona, for example, and you want, I guess they don't have hurricanes there, but they might have something else. You want a window installed in your house that meets certain requirements that are pretty common in Arizona, Miami-Dade County approval is going to have that code acceptable anywhere. Here's the bug I was talking about. It's laser etching information, very similar information as you can see right here, where it says here in the bug, it's tempered glass, not laminated glass, tempered glass. It has a manufacturing date. Oftentimes they not only have a date, but they'll have a time as well. And let's see, what else does it say here? There are different thicknesses of glass. The inner pane, the outer pane thickness is going to have the laminate in the middle thickness. It's going to have requirements here for who's making this all legit and like that. Here's a better example spelled out. We have our lamination logo. We have, says here, LSG, which is laminated safety glass. That tells you it's laminated. It's going to see up here, it's going to see MDCA, which is Miami-Dade County approved, required by code. That's that. MDCA, Miami-Dade County approved. Date of lamination, time of lamination, we don't care about that. That's going to tell you where it was made, where it was manufactured. And all of these things are going to be in both in the label at the header of the window or door and also located in the bug. The problem with the bug is you don't always get to read it because of where it's located. And sometimes it's obscured by other things. Here's a different company. This is Pella, but their bug is etched on here, as you can see. Insulated safety glass or insulated glass process. Insulated glass makes glass more energy efficient while providing impact resistant benefits. It substantially reduces interior noise such as traffic, lawnmowers, barking dogs. It makes it more difficult to heat or more difficult for heat or cold to move through the glass. Some building codes require it. Not many, but some do, because of its expense mostly. Here's an example of insulated glass where you have a inner panel, an inner pane and outer pane. In the middle is usually going to be either air or argon gas, depending on what the function is. And this gasket right here is what's going to cause those two panes, going to cause the space between the two panes. It's called, the brand name is called Duraseal, or super spacer is another word for it. And that's what creates the airspace. While you're looking at dual pane panes, boy, that was hard to say. You've got to look in each one of these panes of glass to make sure they're still clear, because what happens is they will, either the gasket would fail or something will cause the argon gas to escape, and that creates a partial vacuum, which will allow moisture in the air to be filled inside the glass, sometimes to the point where we actually see rain inside the pane. Here's a good example right here. This is a failed seal situation. And this is very much a type of thing you want to write up in your report when you come across it, and explain to the clients why it's doing what it's doing. There's no good fix for this. It's going to require either the whole window to be replaced, or door if that's the case, or it's going to require. I've heard of a company in outside my market area. I think they're located in Tampa, where they can come in and they drill with a diamond bit. They drill a hole somewhere in one of the panes, usually the inside pane, and then they introduce a desiccant into the inner and outer panes, which absorbs this moisture. And I don't know if they're still around, but they were around a few years ago, and they were making good money doing this. I'm not sure what the quality of that is or how long it lasts, but that was a way to get away from having to replace the whole window. Another example, when you see this, the gasket has failed, and there's no easy fix for this. This I see a lot on dual pane windows, where the gasket itself is deformed, and that's a temperature differential issue. Like the condensation, it's failed, but the reason is because the sunlight, the direct sunlight into the outer pane, causing heat to develop here, and that causes that deformation of the gasket. Both fixes require the same approach. You have to replace the window or replace the pane if they're able to separate one from the other. In this case, this transom window would require the whole window being replaced. Touch-sensitive glass. Glass touchscreens use a technique called capacitive touch detection. The electronics behind the glass emits a constant quasi-static electric field that senses a disruption of the glass by someone's finger. A touchscreen is a bit like an invisible keyboard glued to the front of your monitor or phone. Essentially like a keyboard, every key on a keyboard has an electric switch. And the same is true on your laptop or your phone, where depending on the screen you touch will translate into a specific kind of response. When you push a key down, you complete an electric circuit and the current flows. The current varies according to the key you press, and that's how your computer or phone figures out what you're trying to do. And by the way, whoops, what did I do? That previous slide is where the alien technology comes in, because it's a characteristic of glass that was unheard of until it showed up on the market all of a sudden, and nobody knows why. They don't even know who invented it, so that's why they think it's alien technology. It was found on a spaceship. Make of that what you will. Bulletproof glass. We don't see a lot of bulletproof glass in typical single-family homes or condos for that matter, but it's interesting stuff, so I thought I'd talk about it. Bulletproof glass is a durable alternative to glass for structures and vehicles that need an additional level of protection. By using strong, sturdy plastics, bulletproof glass can stop a frenzy of impacts dead in its tracks, but it's not 100% impenetrable. Nothing is. In fact, no bulletproof glass is guaranteed to protect against all projectiles or repeated impact. Bulletproof glass is made from a combination of two or more types of glass. One is hard and one is soft. The softer layer makes it more elastic, so it stretches instead of shattering. That's where the plastic inner layer comes in. As a result, when we refer to bulletproof or resistant glass, we're actually referring to bullet-resistant plastic and its absorption capabilities. Here's an example of a commercial door where it got impacted using, they claim, bulletproof glass. It looks a lot like laminated glass, but the two are not that far apart depending on thickness. Reading a break, you choose to want to do that. Knowing what we do about this type of glass, the sequence of impacts can be determined. When a projectile or something hits glass, the polycarbonate bulletproof glass absorbs a lot of that force, distributing it into the plastic, so it does not go through. When you have a sequence of bullet holes or impacts, can be determined by looking at the radial fractures. The cracks radiate out from the point of impact and are stopped by earlier cracks. Here we have example of impact A and impact B, and we can determine by looking at the radial cracks which came first and which came second. If you look at the cracks from A, they stop, whereas cracks from B have already occurred. Consequently, impact B came first and impact A came next. Is that important as a home inspector? No, I just thought it was interesting. A good example here where we have B, and you see the radial cracks from A stop at B, telling you that B came first, A was second. Here's a BB gun shot of a house. Same thing applies. When you look at A and B, you can see that A came first, and B came second. Wrap up and review. The type of glass we're typically going to find in a house is going to be annealed glass, heat strengthened glass, has moderate tension and compressive strength. Tempered glass we find more and more often in the homes today. Extreme tension and compression capabilities. And when we're dealing with any one of these panes, or the bottom two rather, we have edge compression and we have surface compression. And those two have to be in balance, which is where the heat process comes in. Otherwise, the pane of glass will shatter or break over, if not immediately, over time. Annealed glass shatters in shards. Tempered glass shatters in beads. And laminated glass doesn't shatter, but maintains its shape. Are there any questions?
Hey, Mike, you kind of touched on this before, but regarding moisture in the double pane windows, has anyone found a company that will remove the glass from the sash and replace it?
According to the information I've gotten talking to different manufacturers, that's an impractical way to do that. Now, if you've got a single hung or a dual hung window and only the bottom or the top is affected, those panes with the frame can be taken out of the opening and you can replace just that part of it. But if you're dealing with fixed pane or other types of glass or window openings, you got to remove the whole thing, because at that point, that's what you're doing anyway. And it requires not only the frame of the window, but the frame of the whole assembly.
Thanks.
Except for that company in Tampa that drills a little hole, but I'm not sure what kind of quality you're getting out of that, because I've never actually seen their work. I've just heard about them.
Gotcha. Patrick Arnold, you raised your hand. Do you have a question?
I think there's a company right here in Northern Virginia that's doing something similar to that. And like you said, Mike, I'm not sure about the quality of their product. I don't know that I've heard much. I hear about them frequently, but I haven't heard much positive about them. Although I don't know how much negative I've heard either. So
I would think, Hollis, that would be a temporary fix at best. And I know down here they're charging $100, $150 a pane. So if you're looking at a window that only costs $300, what's the point?
Yeah, especially a window with a design life of 15 years, because the vinyl is going to go bad.
Yeah.
To invest $150 in a 300 is probably a little bit low, but $400 or $500 window.
This is Mike Price. There are strips on most windows sold in Northern Virginia on the exterior that you can remove, and you can buy from any glass company what's called a glass pack, and they're usually a quarter of an inch quarter of an inch larger than what you can see from the interior. But on the exterior, there are plastic strips that with a screwdriver you can remove, and the whole glass comes out. And they're roughly, I work part-time for a roofing contractor that does insurance restoration work. and we buy them all the time, but the problem is they're like $300 once they're installed. But I mean, if you consider, like, people will give you a price for a whole window of a couple of $100, but then you got to replace all the trim and paint and caulk. So they are cheaper, but not by much.
Well, how do they maintain the interior dry air? I mean, that air, whether it's argon gas, which is impractical to install on site, or just
They're-
air between, how do they
Um,
maintain the relative humidity of that air?
We buy them from the glass manufacturer, and they ship them in cardboard, and it's just the glass pack itself. It's not the plastic, it's just the glass. And it has the argon gas in it. And
I
it's
see.
sealed with silicone around the edges.
Interesting. Thank you.